Hey everybody, how's it going? It is Fabrizio Aiello. It's been a while. Welcome to what is Fabrizio inking. Even though technically I'm not inking today. I'm going to be drawing. And this is what I'm drawing. Sort of like a ghoul. We'll call him a ghoul. Goblin. Water thing, maybe. I'm going to be very... Well, we'll see what happens. But I wanted to do like pools and puddles and reflections and stuff like that. But that'll probably be one of the last things I do. But first, check out my comic book, Horace H. Hoover, available at alternacomics.com. Issue 3 is currently funding. Let me grab that. Should only take a second. This is issue 3 of a 5-issue miniseries, and it's currently being backed at alternacomics.com. Yeah, so this is the cover. Deep down in the caves of chaos looms the Loquat. So this is planned to be shipped in April or May probably. And then it'll be 2 more issues, issues 4 and issues 5, and that'll be the end of the miniseries. After the miniseries, we'll see what happens. You know, there's some arcs that I want to get to. I'm not sure the order, some things I want to do, but check it out. Back it on alternacomics.com. Thanks. All right, back to the drawing. Artsy Bible nerd. How's it going? Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. It is a very relaxing Saturday afternoon here. So, I wanted to do something a little more chill and actually draw instead of ink. I don't think I'll be able to finish the drawing to get to the inking stage, but I'll do that on another stream for sure. My camera is picking up. Giant mic. Yeah, so where I'm at with this right now, you know, what I'll originally do is I'll do sort of a sketchy drawing, and then I'll sort of kind of focus in on parts that I think that are either complex, but parts that I need to describe more before I jump into the inking. Some people will do a gesture and start inking. That is not me at all. And then from here, once I feel like I have like a good composition, I have the character, I kind of have a feel for what the drawing's going to be, I essentially erase most of it with a kneaded eraser, and this will essentially knock it back as much or as little as I want it to, just so I can see what I had underneath, and then I'll do a final pencil. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be knocking this back and then kind of carving in brand new, very detailed pencils. Then I'll be inking over that. Sasquatch Gettys. Glad I discovered your channel. It really helps to motivate my art. Hey, thanks for popping in. I really appreciate it. It's fun to have people to chat to while I'm drawing. I think the one thing that I do is I show almost all of, from as far as inking is concerned, the entire process. So that Hawkman I did recently, I streamed the entire thing. I didn't do anything off camera except the very end. So you can see from the very beginning through the potentially ugly stages into the final art, which I think is important, because everybody, when they're drawing, they get to a certain point, they're like, I don't know if I can pull this out of the fire or not. And usually if you just keep going, you can get it to a good place. So yeah, thanks again. So I'm going to start with essentially knocking all of the pencils back. But I want to make sure that I can still see what I had. Because I'll need to use that to do the final pencils. The other thing, what it does is it allows me to fix anything that I need to in this pass. But hopefully proportions, and you've worked out enough where the finished pencils is more, it's more execution than creative. I'm not going to say it's not creative, but you have everything down that you need. You have the foundation, you have the basics, and this is just really honing in on the details. That way when you are inking, you don't have to draw and ink at the same time. Love your tips and hints. I started with the Hawkman episodes. Awesome. Yeah, that was really fun to do. I haven't done a bunch of fan art, and the Hawkman, I think, was probably one of the first ones I ever did. So I definitely have some more of those planned. I have a Doctor Strange one I want to do. But if you guys have any suggestions on characters or anything, let me know. I also I wanted to do some more fantasy stuff, just straight up fantasy. But we'll kind of see how things go. So I really can see what I had going before. So from here, part of it is just going in and explicitly putting stuff down that I had kind of just sketched in for some things, and for some other things it's fixing, tweaking. Like right there, I just changed his head a little bit. So that stuff happens a lot during this phase. But it's a lot easier to fix those little things when you have most of the drawing already done, which I do. You know, like I said, I have placement and composition, and I have proportions of anatomy and things like that pretty much down. So it just takes pressure off. Like, for example, if you have a problem with eyes, you know, the last thing you want to do is worry about the eyes and the nose and the proportions and the perspective all at the same time. What this does, if you nail down the overall structure, then when it gets to the eyes, you can really focus on that a little more without having all of those other things. Sorry. Sometimes I do need to stop talking and draw. You don't have those other things competing for your attention. And the one thing that is really important for me, how I approach penciling, is I erase a lot. So not only do I do that initial knockdown with a kneaded eraser, I have just a small eraser, and I'll go in and clean it up some more, because it gets pretty muddy, you know. With a sketch like that, you're gonna have a lot of pencil marks that you don't necessarily want. So as I'm putting in the new clean lines, I erase some of the old ones, and you get a generally clear drawing. I wanted to try to do this guy in the rain. So we'll see how that works out. So I am going to start just showing like water here and there. With monsters like this, you can really play up the asymmetry, so things don't have to be very balanced, but you just can't, there's a certain line you can't cross, unfortunately. So, you know, the anatomy is still going to be humanoid for sure. You know, I'm approaching these muscles, the structure how I would a human, but I'm just gonna tweak him a little bit. hadn't actually planned on giving him pupils, but I just did, and yeah, I really like that. I always like things hanging off. It just, it kind of implies emotion, you know, depending on the drawing. It could imply that the monster is standing up, and you have dirt and rocks falling off. Again, if it's rain, you have water dripping, maybe the character's moving, walking forward. Just little elements like that definitely seem to help. What issue number is this book? So this isn't part of Horace H. Hoover. I am working on issue 4 right now, but this is just a drawing that I wanted to do. You know, whenever I'm sitting down to do the comic book, it's nice to just warm up and draw something that's not in the book. Kind of takes the pressure off. So this is just a drawing I wanted to do. And you know, you do these sketches and you do these warm-ups, and then sometimes you're like, oh, I like how this is turning out, so I'm gonna actually do a finished drawing and then ink it. How long has Alterna Comics been around? Alterna's been around for a while, I think 17, 18 years. So they have a bunch of books. I've been doing my book, Horace H. Hoover, for... Technically, I've been doing it for 3 years. Alterna's been publishing it for 2 years now. Yeah, this sort of stuff isn't in, when I say this sort of stuff, this character, we'll say, isn't in the 5-issue miniseries. But what happens a lot of times is the warm-ups and then these sort of one-off drawings will give me ideas, and then they become characters later in the story. You just kind of see a character, and they kind of stick with you. You know, depending on how frustrated I get with this drawing or not. If it turns out good and I really like the character, then it's not hard to come up with a story that can involve them. Now I'm actually changing a little bit of the way I draw here, based on the character. You know, the character is, you know, all gnarly and textured, maybe scaly, you know, full of dirt or things like that. So the way I'm penciling is kind of goes along with that, which is a little different than my normal style. But that's a good way to differentiate your characters from one another. I'm not saying you need to change your style between characters, but the texture of this character's skin is different, and you need as many essentially visual cues as you can to tell the difference between this monster, you know, maybe the tree, the ground, another character that comes up, you know, outside of the silhouette and everything else with the character. Just do as much as you can. Give yourself as much help to differentiate between each characters. I see a lot of David Finch influences in your drawing. Oh, wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been following him for a very, very long time. Actually, this is kind of a funny story. When I was in college, so it was very difficult to get in contact with people or really learn a lot of stuff when I was going to college because, well, it was pre-internet. That's how old I am. But somehow I found his email. I think it might have been a Wizard magazine or something like that. And I emailed him in college when I had no concept of even where to start with comics, what software to use to color them. I didn't understand the process. And I emailed him one day, and he emailed me right back, answered all my questions. It was very cool. I really appreciated him taking the time to do that. Now it's a lot easier to sort of get in contact with people via social media, but before it was a bit of a chore. I need to grab a piece of paper so I don't smudge. Yeah, whenever I'm penciling, if I don't put something down, I won't have any pencils left, basically. I will smudge it because I'm left-handed and I always jump around. If I was smarter, I would start on the right-hand side and move left, but sometimes it's just hard to do that. But yeah, David Finch has been around a long time. I remember, I'm totally blanking on his image stuff. There were angels and demons. Was it Ascension? I think it was Ascension. That's when I first saw his stuff. It's very great of you giving back. I was in the same situation in art college. Hard to get any advice back then. Yeah, no problem. I know what it's like. And sometimes, you can watch videos or read articles, but you just need one really specific question answered. So yeah, any questions at all, please throw it in chat, or if you think about it later, throw it in the comments. When I was in college, I went to school for fine art, and they were pretty hands off on the actual technical side of it. So if you really wanted to learn anatomy or perspective or anything like that, you pretty much were on your own. They gave you the tools, and they would occasionally give you advice, but nothing. It wasn't extensive at all. So it wasn't until really quite a bit after college that I was able to buy books and watch videos and really get a handle on some stuff. But I know everybody else says this, but it is true. Really, just digging in and finishing things really helps you so much. It doesn't mean that everything you finish is going to be amazing, but You learn so much just by going through the process over and over again. I'm doing issue 4, so I've done, something like 100 pages of a comic book. But I've done 100 pages writing, drawing, inking, coloring, and lettering. So I've really gone through the entire process of making a comic book on each of those pages. And it gives me a little bit of a unique sort of perspective, because by the time it gets to lettering, I can kind of see what really worked and didn't work with the drawing or the inking, and on a fine grain sort of case by case basis. So I really take that into account the next time I start a new issue, or now at this stage, I'm not thinking too much about lighting, just a little bit. This is more about just figuring out the form. I do know that light is coming from the right-hand side, because I kind of denoted that here, but I'm not there yet. Right now, it's just, like I said, getting the form down for the most part, and then I'll really go in and figure out lighting a bit more later. I'm keeping it in mind, but it's not the most important thing right now. Where did you go to school? My career kind of took a turn, so getting back into illustration more seriously now. I went to Edinburgh University, and after school, I did a lot of different things. I ended up doing software development, so I've been doing software development for a very long time. The illustration stuff right now is just sort of for fun. You always hope that you sell enough comics, or get enough illustration out there to do that full time, but still doing software development. Just want to make sure that the scale isn't going off, meaning, the right arm isn't bigger than the left arm, the right hand isn't bigger than the left hand. You can have some of that for sure, especially for monsters. There's a little bit of leeway, because like I said, sometimes the asymmetry, maybe I didn't, the asymmetry really gives it that monster feel. If not, it would just be kind of an ugly human. But if you start with human anatomy and then kind of twist it and tweak it and pull it, that's when you really get sort of the monster feel. So I feel like I have him pretty good as far as the major points that that might be a concern. So I definitely want to jump around a bit more. So I'm going to essentially break this up into foreground, middle ground, and background. So the foreground should definitely get the most love, right? I do want to finish up this little area here, though. I think I just lied. I'm not moving at all, am I? I'm going to have to do a little bit of research on these puddles. There's a couple different ways that you can handle these. I'm not entirely sure how I want to do it just yet. So I might hold off on that. Just get some of this background. I should say middle ground. This is kind of turned it into a bit of a Bernie Wrightson drawing. If you're not familiar with Bernie Wrightson, I would definitely check him out. It's an old artist, one of the best for sure. But just the way this drawing is kind of working out, I'm starting to feel a little Bernie Wrightson in it. He really focused on horror and really just an amazing artist. Probably one of the greatest comic book artists of all time. And not just comic books either. He definitely transcended comics. You know, he did illustrations that were just some of the best ever. definitely am going to have to do sort of big kind of grass, weeds type stuff up front, just to give it a little bit of framing. Yeah, if you get enough of the drawing down in the sketch, then a lot of this part is actually really enjoyable, because like I said, you don't have to worry about all of those other things. You've already worked out the major problems, problem points, I should say. So this just becomes more enjoyable, really. It makes the initial sketch a little less enjoyable because you kind of gotta force yourself to make sure you hashed out all the problem spots beforehand. His Swamp Thing and monsters had awesome characters. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's why I'm feeling very Bernie Wrightson with this one. It's definitely like his arena, we'll say. I just got to keep adjusting the camera because I keep drawing off the screen. Now I'm probably going to do this whole section here. So the big tree. This is probably going to be all black up until a certain point. I think if it wasn't black, I think it would be too much going on for your eye to focus on the character. Yeah, I gotta do some cleanup here. Sometimes it's tough taking whole sections and just making them dark, but sometimes that's what you need to describe the form. Because you feel like, oh geez, I spent all this time figuring out the anatomy and, you know, all this kind of stuff, but things might still look flat, you know. A good example is this. This is very Finchian as well. Finchian is, he always essentially knocks like the rib, like inside the rib cage, to black, and that really kind of drives home that this is hitting the light, that's going under, hitting the light, going under. So yeah, sometimes you really need to bite the bullet and just realize that even if you spend a lot of time, you know, drawing detail and doing a bunch of stuff with the form, it doesn't describe the form like it needs to unless you go completely black. Like the feet, or I'm sorry, the lower legs here, that's going to be totally black because I want to show that the leg is coming forward and this is either straight or going backwards. And I'll do that with the other leg too. I'll probably leave maybe the edge white though, or just like it hitting a few parts of the top. Easy Comic Reader. How's it going? Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. You know what? It's a good time for me to see what I've been doing, have a drink. So his head is off center, and I did that on purpose. The question is, am I going to keep it like that? You can't be precious with your art, so if you notice something wrong when you flip that drawing, you gotta fix it. If not, you know, all that work is for naught. So I'm gonna change it for sure. Robert Johnson, hey, thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. Your art also reminds me of Luke McDonnell, original Suicide Squad artist. Thanks, Easy Comic Reader. Yeah, I think I need to tweak the head. Question is, how do I want to do that? I'm gonna have to think about this one. Alright, so his head's going away, right? I'm not going to completely erase it because I want to know what I was doing before. I'll move it over. So it'll take a bit to get back to where it was. But yeah, once you flip the drawing, you'll see that it was a little too asymmetrical. Like you go into monsters and you definitely want them to be off kilter, but there's just that line where the difference, it doesn't look off kilter, it looks incorrect. And I think I might have gone over that line, but it's okay because There's nothing wrong with that. You just erase it and get it back in some other state. Do you do any digital work at all? So I sculpt digitally. I do ZBrush, and I have for many years. But I don't draw digitally. For some reason, it never clicked with me. So I sculpt, but all my drawing and inking is definitely traditional. So now I'm kind of back to the sketching phase until I get this back to what I'm looking for. I enjoy putting your videos on while I work. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Yeah, I have my specific podcasts and videos I put on when I'm working too. So that looks a little better. There's just something too asymmetrical about them. This is Monster Talk with Fabrizio Aiello, where we discuss the the very nuanced asymmetry of monsters. Yeah. So now you will see me go back to just very gestural. So I'm using a very classic sort of boxes and cylinders just to try to get it back to where I feel like it should be. But again, you can't be precious with this stuff. If it's not looking good, you really need to let it go. Well, not let it go. You need to not be attached to it and just erase it and go for it again and again until you get it. I think it's his arms. So we have this one arm that sort of crosses over onto his leg, and this other arm is hanging out. I think that's just, it's really throwing this drawing for some reason. And I could do the same pose, have both of his hands kind of come forward. Definitely lose some asymmetry, but maybe it still works. Thank God for photos. Oh, hey, Chris Maycock, how's it going? Yeah, you might have just missed it. I just erased a bunch. I usually don't draw on streams, but why not? Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. Sorry if you already mentioned it, but is this something that will go into a future issue of Horse H. Hoover? Yeah, no worries. What I like to do is essentially do concept art like this, and depending on how things go, when I'm at the end, it just feels like, yeah, you know what? I think I have an idea for this character. Or, I mean, it really could go essentially into a pile of concept art that I have, and I pull it out later. Whenever I'm coming up with a story, I'm like, oh, you know what would be perfect here is this weird character, you know? So yeah, it's not, I don't really go into it thinking that, but oftentimes it will sort of, at the end, it'll be like, you know what? This will go great here or there or something. Okay, so I'm still working on the gesture with this, but I think we're getting closer. If you jump back to the beginning of the stream, you will see that I had started to finish this, and then I just got to a point where I felt like, no, it's really not working as it should. So this will be pretty interesting when I finish this, we can jump back to the beginning of this first stream and see the difference, like what I ended up with and what I started with. And then maybe I'll do like a comparison on the two. That might be interesting. So what I'll do is basically the same thing I did before. Once I get the gesture down and I'm really happy with it, I'll knock all this back with a kneaded eraser, and then I'll finish the pencils. But I'm not there just yet. This is the work part of drawing. You know, when you're really just still trying to figure out some of the big questions. But you get there eventually. You just gotta have faith that you've done it 100 times before, and you'll get there again. There's no point in stressing about it. So I'm gonna let that sit for a minute, because I gotta come back to it with some fresh eyes. So I'll have some coffee. Easy Comic Reader, I backed the campaign on Alterna, and I'm really hoping to get the Horus poster. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I am so excited about issue 3. It definitely feels like, I mean, I know it's my best issue so far. The story gets cranked up a notch, and it ends on a great spot to finish out the story of the Smoke Man. So thanks again. I really appreciate that. Oh, you know what? I will grab the model that I just got. I almost forgot to show this. This will give me a few minutes to kind of digest. So this is the Horace H. Hoover model, and you'll see it's about 5.5 inches. I don't know what the total height is. Really, really well done. This is actually a piece of wire, and I don't know if you can tell how small that plug is. The model maker, Evan Morgan, did an incredible job on this. I really can't stress enough how the fit, the finish, the paint job, this is top notch. I've worked with other companies before, and this really has been a pleasure. He's going to be doing a Max sculpture for me in 2024. It takes him a while because you can see the detail. So the thing that's cool is I have 20 painted, but I also have 10 unpainted. So if there are any model resin kit makers out there, I'll go through it. So basically, you have all of the pieces here. So, yep, so you have the body, and then you have the arms that are cut and keyed, that fit right in there. It's a beautiful fit, and like that is like the mark of a good model maker, is how nicely that fits. And then we have the base here, which the feet go into. Then we have the head. Yeah, this is a lot of fun if you're a resin kit maker. So that fits right in there. And then we have, these are the really small, those are, I don't know if you can see the wheels. And then these are his pouches on his waist. And then we have the hose that fits into the helmet. I'll put that in because that's just a lot of fun. Yep, so that fits in there. So yeah, so these are going to be for sale very, very shortly. I have them. I'm just waiting on packaging. If anybody's interested, I think I might, we'll see about doing like a giveaway for one of the painted models. I'm not too sure what to do about that, but I definitely want to at least do one giveaway for that. Backing question, is supporting monthly or can I back your whole campaign? The shipping to Canada is a bit steep. Is supporting monthly? I'm not sure what you mean. I'm sorry. Backing question, is supporting monthly? Oh no. So whenever you back the campaign, it's just that campaign and it's just those comics. They get printed and you get one shipment of those comics. Or can I back your whole campaign? As far as the Horace H. Hoover campaign, that is going to be later on. So we're going to, you know, I have to finish up issue 4 and do some things. So for that's going to be a little different. I would say keep an eye out. Go to HoraceHoover.com or my Twitter or Instagram, and I'll have all the information for that. But definitely for issue 3, it's just those 4 issues, or it's just mine, depending on what you backed. Because yeah, I definitely get shipping to Canada. It's pretty brutal. I've shipped some things, and I feel so bad that it kind of gets screwed in Canada, or actually anywhere else, really. That's a bummer. Because the thing is, you know, the comic book's only $2.25, you know, and it would be really cheap, but then you add shipping on that, and all of a sudden that becomes a different price structure, unfortunately. Alrighty, so I'm gonna do this one last photo to make sure I got this fixed. I believe I do. The whole trade would be awesome, yeah. That is the plan. You know, if that's something you want to wait for, there's nothing wrong with that. I totally get it. I plan on doing collected versions of stuff that I do. The monthly single issues are great, and they're a lot of fun to read, and they're easy. But like you said, for shipping, for other considerations, you know, a collected trade should always be a nice either option or addition to the floppies. Okay, so let's clean this up now that we've gone through the 12 stages of grief regarding the drawing that I started that just completely got erased. But I mean, this really is the process, and it's just, the process for the comic book is really no different. When I sit down, you have an idea in your head, you get so far, but then sometimes it just doesn't work out, and you have to be willing to erase and start over. As long as, this is my caveat, as long as what you're looking for is something in service of the story, you can always do a quote-unquote better drawing. That's true, right? You could do that forever. But in a comic book, you're not just doing great drawings. You're doing drawings that are in service of a story. So if that's what you're after, and you really feel like, what, I could service the story much better if I redraw it, if I do it this way, or if I change something about it. I always say, yeah, go for it. But if it's just to do the drawing better, whatever that means, I'm not a fan of that, because like I said, you could do that forever and you'll never get anywhere. Thanks, Sasquatch Gettys. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. It's something that you get, whenever you're doing pages in a comic book, it can get very myopic, and you have your head down and you're just drawing these pages, and at the very end you get the printed stuff. It's a long process. So having things sort of going on while you're doing the comic book is just, it's nice, and it inspires you to do different things and keep going. So yeah, that model was pretty cool. It's already been an hour. Well, usually I cut off after an hour, but since I had to sort of start over, I definitely going a little over. I just want to get this to a certain point before I call it a day and get back to my pages. The lesson learned today is there is such a thing as too much asymmetry in a monster. And that is a lesson I need to remember. Hey TF, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. I still use all of the human anatomy sort of main points as reference. So, shoulders are going to be the same for this monster as they are for humans. So I kind of put the top of that as a reference point, to draw all the other stuff. Kind of keeps you grounded to some degree. Took 2 steps forward or 1 step forward and 2 steps back with this, but you got to look at it as, the the final product is really all that matters. Because whenever you have that final product, nobody really cares that you got sick and tired of drawing and you didn't want to erase anymore. That doesn't really, nobody really takes that in consideration. So you have to do it as many times as you need to get it right. I wonder if monsters think of us as monsters. Like the Paula Abdul song. I don't know that Paula Abdul song. I don't know if monsters think of us as monsters. I bet they definitely think, at minimum, we all look the same. And monsters are like, man, you're such a square. You look like everybody else. Maybe monsters are like the original punks. Opposites Attract. I do know that song. I guess I don't know the lyrics that well. That's the one with the tap dancer guy, right? Or Arsenio Hall or something. That was so long ago. I apologize. My Paula Abdul trivia is woefully lacking. Hey, Robert Johnson, how's it going? I don't think Bigfoot cares about what we look like. I don't know. Yeah, that's true. He probably doesn't. He's probably thinking, what are those things that they wear on their bodies? Why are they covering up their beautiful hair? Yeah, so at this point, I will essentially knock back this whole thing again with a kneaded eraser and then do the final pencils from that. So that'll be the second time I've done this on this paper. The paper should be fine to do that, but you're pushing it, 2 or 3 times, erasing and drawing and erasing and drawing, depending, you can start to kind of tear up the paper. This particular Strathmore paper, like I said, should be fine, but depending on what you're using, that's always a risk you run. Yes. TF, I dig your ink work. Thank you. I know I'm not inking today. I really, I just felt like drawing. Inking's a lot easier to stream just because all the pencils are done, and I'm kind of, I don't want to say mindlessly, because I'm never mindlessly doing it, but, it's a lot less mental activity to ink and stream, so That's generally why I don't draw and stream at the same time. But I appreciate it. Yeah, so this guy, he's going to take some work. Oh, tomorrow I am on Horror Mike's podcast. He has a channel where he reviews and talks about horror movies and comics. And very cool channel. I will put it in the description, but if it should be on my Twitter tomorrow at 4 o'clock on Horror Mike's YouTube channel. I'm looking forward to it. It's funny because sometimes I don't know where to put Horace H. Hoover. He's not horror, it's more like, I call it occult pulp mystery adventure, which is like this very long amalgam of different things, but I kind of like that idea. I'm all day flatting over here. Oh, really? That's cool. What do you use to flat? Are you Photoshop, Clip Studio? I have somebody that does my flatting for me, but like if you're on Twitter, send me your info. If you're available. I don't have a lot of stuff to flat right now, but when I'm done with issue 4, I'll need that whole issue flatted before I start. Lobster Johnson. Wow. Holy cow. That's cool. I love Lobster Johnson. I always think about, I don't know, maybe that's not appropriate for this for this stream. Monster anatomy. Belly buttons and all those things that you're like, wait a minute, would this monster have a belly button? Does that even make any sense? But then if you leave off the belly button, that you're immediately drawn to it sometimes. It's weird how that works. Like if you want people to not notice it, you have to put it there. So I have put a belly button on a monster. I'm like, yeah, this doesn't even make any sense. But if I leave that belly button off, it'll immediately, your eye's going to go right there because it's so strange. Not always, but it does happen. I'm using Clip Studio. I'm on Threads. Okay, cool. Yeah, Clip Studio, I don't think I flatted in that. I tried lettering. In the end, I had to bail and go back to Illustrator, though. I'll be there. Horror Mike introduced me to Alterna about a year ago. That's awesome. Thank you. That's so cool. I'm not flatting Lobster Johnson. I was just commenting on the genre you place your characters in. Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. Like Hellboy type stuff. I will say the tone is different. So it's impossible not to mention Hellboy when you're talking about like occult investigators and things like that. But I always have the caveat. I'm like, yeah, the tone is very different a lot of times of Horace H. Hoover than a BPRD or a Hellboy or something like that. Affinity Designer. I love Affinity. Photo. Yeah, right now I can't bail on Adobe because the printer needs, I should say, the publisher needs Photoshop and Illustrator files. So the ones that you can export out aren't 100% as far as translating everything over. So for the time being, I'm still stuck with Adobe, but man, Affinity has done such a great job as a competitor. I mean, the pricing is crazy. You can't beat it. Alrighty. Yeah, Adobe. Don't get me started on Adobe. So I think we got him back to his original state, but it fixed. Oh man. Yeah, I will make sure that I stream everything as far as this guy, just to show him resurrected from the beginning and redrawn and fixed and the inevitable finishing. So I appreciate everybody popping in. This was fun. Usually Saturdays are pretty chill. So thanks for everybody popping in that I haven't seen before. And if you haven't, check out alternativecomics.com. And issues 1 and 2 are available. Issue 3 is currently backing. And more info, go to HoraceHoover.com. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and all that jazz. But hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.